Welcome, everybody. This is the June 14th, 2022 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. My name is Rob Shaw. I'll be the acting chair tonight for the Zoning Board. I am a full-time member. Our chair and vice chair are both unable to attend tonight. We also have Mr. Jack Currier, our vice chair, on Zoom with us tonight. And then here in the auditorium, we also have our three alternate members, Mr. Jay Mankara, Mr. Nick Kanakis, and Mrs. Tafia Boras. And we also have Carter Falk, Deputy Planning Manager with the city, and Kate Boyer, Planning Coordinator with the city. So again, welcome everybody. This meeting tonight will be recorded by written transcript, audio tape, and video. We do ask that you direct all testimony into a microphone and only one person to speak at a time. If you don't already have a copy of tonight's agenda, please feel free to get a copy located, I think, is at the rear or podium right now. Tonight we'll be hearing hearing requests for deviations from the National Zoning Code in the form of applications for special exceptions and variances. Just I'll quickly describe a little bit about what those are. Special exception is a request that seeks permission to do something that the zoning ordinance permits only under special circumstances. The 5 criteria required for this board to grant a request for a special exception are that the requested use must be listed in a table of use regulations as a special exception, that the requested use will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety, that the requested use will not overload any public water, drainage, sewer system, or any other municipal system such that other areas of the city will be subjected to hazards affecting health, safety, or general welfare. Fourth, any special regulations for the use set forth in other sections of the zoning ordinance are fulfilled. And fifth, that the requested use will not impair the integrity or character of the district of adjoining zones, nor be detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare of the residents of Nashua. A variance, meanwhile, another kind of request we'll be considering is a request that seeks permission to do something that the ordinance does not directly permit. The 5 criteria that must be established for the approval of a variance are, first, that the variance will not be contrary to public interest, that the spirit of the ordinance will be observed, substantial justice will be done, the values of surrounding parcels are not diminished, and literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. The City of Nashua bylaws, there's a requirement that a minimum of 3 or more affirmative votes are required to approve any application. In addition, the board will hear any and all scheduled cases as long as a quorum of 3 voting board members are present at this meeting. And we right now have the maximum allowed 5 actual active voting members for a case. So all the members in attendance tonight will be voting on all cases unless they have a reason to recuse themselves from a given case. Any citizen has the right to request or to contest a decision that this board makes. Should you feel that a decision's been made in error, you have the right to request what is known as a rehearing. A written rehearing request must be received by Mr. Carter Falk and the City of Nashua Planning Department within 30 calendar days from the day after a decision was made. And you'll hear me probably remind the applicants of this as we go through the cases tonight. Should this board not grant a rehearing request, you can still file an appeal directly to New Hampshire Superior Court. And if you have need more information, please again contact Mr. Falk. Per our approved Zoning Board of Adjustment bylaws, the review and decision of each application occurs in 2 parts. We have a public hearing and a public meeting. The first part is the public hearing. That's where the applicant and citizens can address this board and speak to the merits of the case. The order of testimony is as follows. The applicant has up to 15 minutes to present their case. Those in favor will have limits of 5 minutes each to speak, and then we'll move to anybody that has opposition, questions, or concerns. You'll have a limit of 5 minutes each to speak in that mode. And then if there is opposition or questions, concerns, anything like that, the applicant then has 5 minutes to speak in rebuttal to those points that were made in opposition. And then one representative and only one person if there's multiple parties that were in opposition with questions will have up to 5 minutes to speak in the final rebuttal. Please make sure you direct all testimony to this board and not to anyone in the audience or to anybody else. If you have questions about an application, they are to be directed to us as the board, and we'll work to get them answered. The second part then, after the public hearing, is what is the public meeting, where the board will deliberate the merits of the case just amongst ourselves, and we are not allowed to take any testimony during that part of the process. And then we'll typically render a decision of some sort that is usually an approval or a denial, but sometimes we'll also table cases and other possibilities, but those are generally the modes that we'll finish up with, and then we'll just simply move on to the next case. And there's no reason to stick around after your case has been heard unless you're interested in hearing other things going on here. You're more than welcome to stay. Just a quick reminder to please silence or turn off any mobile devices. If you need to have a conversation, please just step out into the hallway. The auditorium acoustics are actually very good, so it's very easy to hear sound carry quite well up here from the audience. Mr. Falker, are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
No, there are not.
Okay. Any questions from the audience before we begin? Okay, we still need to take attendance, so I'll go through and we'll do that. And also because, and the other thing, I'm sorry that I'm not still used to this as much, and I haven't run a meeting in the Zoom fashion. I've previously chaired this board, but we also, of course, have Zoom connection available for participants, and that has been published with the agenda. The meeting ID is 873-2915-5928, and you can join by phone at 1 area code 929-436-2866. If for some reason you're not able to connect to Zoom, please contact the planning department at 603-589-3056. So I will take the attendance next. I myself, Rob Shaw, am present. And also, Mr. Currier, I think you know the drill, but please make sure you state if anybody's with you in the location you are at online. So, Mr. Currier?
This is Jack Currier. I am present on Zoom. There's no one in the room with me, and I'm on a pre-scheduled trip out of town this evening.
All right, thank you. Mr. Jay Mankara?
Present.
Mr. Nick Kanakis?
Present.
Mrs. Tafia Boras?
Present.
Okay, and again, we have 5 members here with us tonight. So I think we're ready to get started. We will go through the cases in the listed order on the agenda. So that is, the first case is 33 Fairmount Street. Bear with me one moment. I'll read a description into the record and then ask for your testimony. So the owner is Sarah Zimmerman Revocable Trust at 33 Fairmount Street. That's sheet 62, lot 192, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-264 for accessory use area where 40% is allowed, 62% is existing, 58% is proposed, and this is to remove a 900 square foot boathouse and replace that with a new 750 square foot garage. This is in the RB zone, and this case had been postponed from the May 10th, 2022 meeting. And this is in the RB zone. Is there anybody here to present this case? And please state, now again, I'll ask this for all applicants and all those that in testimony, please make sure you state your name and address when you do get ready to speak. So if you could state your name and address, that'd be great.
My name is Robert Zimmerman. I live with my wife, Sarah Zimmerman, at 33 Fairmount Street, and I'm here to represent Sarah on this matter of request for a variance.
Okay, very good. So if you were ready to step through your case and let us know what's going on and however you want to present as far as the points of law and that part of things, please proceed.
This is my first time here, so I'm not quite sure. Today has been a busy day, unfortunately. My wife couldn't be here because she just had cancer surgery, so this has been a rough 6 to 8 months for us. But basically, We've been in Nashua since 1999. We put up this boathouse building in 1999. At the time, we were doing an addition. It's been there until this spring. We have 3 adults with 3 cars. We currently have 3 garages, 1 for each person. And we retired and we sold our big boat and bought a small boat and an RV. And we're hoping to travel, and none of them will fit into the garages. The request is to remove the old temporary building, which is 900 square feet, and replace it with a steel building that meets all codes and standards and would be within proper setbacks. The difficulty for us to qualify is, I don't know when these ordinances were put in place, but when we purchased the property, it came with a pool house, and a 2-car garage already present. There's no way, I shouldn't say no way, no reasonable way or inexpensive way to fill in a pool, since we both use it for physical therapy every day. That would make a lot of sense. But for us to qualify, we'd have to fill the pool in, and then that would allow us to have, I believe we would be within guidelines to put in this request. Adding a metal building, I'm not looking at adding a shack. It's an engineered building that would fit with the decor of the house. If anyone has looked at the pictures of the house, it's an authentic cape designed by Royal Barry Wells. I did an addition in 1995 to 2007 with the intent to keep the character of the house and the neighborhood. It's part of the original 4 corners, which historically goes back to the tannery and the paper mill owner. So I'm really not trying to take away from the character of the house or the character of the neighborhood, but I am trying to find a way to meet our needs to keep things neat, orderly, and protected. I guess that's basically it.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have any questions? Mr. Courier, please go ahead.
Just wanted to clarify, was a building built in 1995 or 1999? I think just a moment ago you said 1999. Just wanted the application is 1995. I would just wanted to clarify which that was.
Yeah, the addition, it took me quite a few years because I built it myself. That is the 12 by 12 mudroom, and then a storage loft and a single-car garage for my wife. The original house had the garage under the building, so I moved the garage outside. The old garage was there. It's a detached 2-car garage on a slab. That would satisfy our needs, but unfortunately, it only has 7'6" openings, so there's no way for me to enlarge those door openings to fit the vehicles in without ripping down the whole building and building it over again, which if we have 3 cars, there's 3 garages right now, I need 2 more stalls to be able to store the other equipment. So that was when, at 1995 was when the old boathouse was built or assembled. We bought the property because it had an area that was flat that we could bring our 42-foot sailboat, and I was going to restore it, and that was the plan. So at the time, we got a temporary permit from the building department. I thought it was going to be a 2-year restoration, and unfortunately, as most people know, that those things don't always go as planned. Life gets in the way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? I think we're all set. You can have a seat.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else present that would like to speak in favor of this application for 33 Fairmount Street? Is there anybody on Zoom that would like to speak in favor of this application? Okay, seeing none, is there anybody present here in the room that would like to speak and ask with any questions, concerns, or opposition? Okay, is there anybody on Zoom who has questions, concerns, or opposition? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Anybody have a point they'd like to start with? Otherwise, I'll just do the usual kind of go around the group. Mr. McIntyre?
Forgive my voice, by the way. Initially, I thought it was a pretty odd request to have 3 garages on one property, 2 freestanding. But I'm inclined to support it largely because it's making the property more conforming, reducing the conformity that's already, non-conformity that's already there.
Mr. Kanakis?
I agree, it's reducing the existing overage, and it looks like it's also getting out of the side setback a little bit more, so I'm in support.
Ms. Morris?
I also agree, and I'm in support with the application as submitted.
Thank you. Mr. Courier?
Yeah, I feel like Mr. Minkara, I think it's, kind of busy as it is, but it is a step up from what it is. It seems to have been in this situation since kind of between 95 and 99. So it's been a part of the neighborhood for a long time. And again, it brings it more into conformance, so I can find support for that reason.
Thank you. And I likewise am in support. I find that, for the same reasons, and especially it's basically making the property more conforming, so I think it's relatively straightforward in that regard. So it doesn't seem like we have any other discussion necessary. Would anybody like to offer a motion?
I'll give it a shot. So I move to approve the variance request of Sarah K. Zimmerman Revocable Trust of 33 Fairmont Street, Sheet 62, Lot 192, for a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-264 for accessory use area, 40% allowed, 62% existing, 58% proposed. And this is to remove an existing 900-square-foot boathouse and replace it with a new 750-square-foot garage in the RB zone. I think overall, the use is a reasonable use of the property. So I think the applicant is satisfied that it is needed to use the property in the way that they're seeking to. It is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. And I'd also note that it is making the property more conforming. It will not adversely affect property values, and we've heard no testimony to that effect. It's not contrary to the public interest, and substantial justice will be done.
Is there a second? Ms. Morris, second,
Yes,
thank you.
second.
Any discussion on the motion? Okay, I'll go through the roll call vote then. Mr. Courier?
Mr. Courier votes in favor of the motion, and I'd also like to say out here in Zoom that the audio has been consistent and good so far.
Oh, good, thank you. Good to note. Ms. Boras?
I'm also in favor.
Mr. Kanakis?
I'm also in favor.
Mr. McIntyre?
Mr. McCarr is in favor.
And Mr. Shaw is in favor. That is 5-0. That vote is unanimous. So your motion, or your variance request does pass. Just a reminder, like I noted in the introduction, there is a 30-day window of appeal. Somebody could file a rehearing if they, still have a concern about this and didn't bring it up tonight, or feel that there was something about our decision that was not proper. But otherwise, and if you have any questions, definitely refer back to Mr. Falk or Ms. Poirier in the planning department. And we wish you luck, and also just best wishes for your wife, and sorry to hear about her situation. Okay, that closes case 1. We'll move to case 2. I'll read that into the record. The owner is Javier Gutron, Jr. The applicant is Jocelyn Gutron. The address is 11 Seminole Drive, sheet 138, lot 364. The request is for a special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-47B for a major home occupation for an in-home physical therapy business. This is in the R9 zone. Is there anybody here to present the case?
Hey, good evening. My name is Jocelyn Guitron, wife of owner Javier Guitron, and I'm applying to be able to practice physical therapy in our home. I know it sounds kind of interesting.
Sorry, and you are at 11 Seminole Drive.
11 Seminole Drive, Nashua.
Thank you. Yeah. Go ahead.
So it's a major home occupation with a special exception, so it's probably a little bit different than the usual construction. But this is by no means going to change the nature of the residential area, nor is it going to obstruct any of the traffic, because my plan is to do appointment only, which means I'm only going to be seeing a client one at a time, and allow them to use my driveway for parking. I am a licensed physical therapist in the state of New Hampshire, and in the state of New Hampshire, practice of physical therapy is as follows. It's testing, examining, and evaluating impairments, movement dysfunctions and disabilities, or other health and movement-related conditions in order to determine a diagnosis, prognosis, and establish a plan of interventions, and then assess the outcomes of these interventions. It's to alleviate impairments, movement dysfunctions, disabilities by designing and implementing modifying interventions that include but are not limited to therapeutic exercise, training related to movement dysfunctions, and self-care and in-home community or work integration, reintegration, manual therapy such as soft tissue and joint mobilization, therapeutic massage, assistive and adaptive orthotics, prosthetics, protective and supported devices and equipment related to movement dysfunctions. I'm sorry but this is all from New Hampshire, the state of New Hampshire, so I just want to be as specific as possible. It also includes integumentary protection, repairing techniques, debridement and wound care, physical agents or modalities, mechanical and electrotherapeutic modalities, and patient-related instruction, all to reduce the risk of injury, impairment, movement dysfunctions, and disability, including the promotion and maintenance of health, wellness, and fitness in populations of all ages, and to engage in administration, consultation, education, and research. With the practice, this will not use more than 300 square foot of the livable space in our home. I'm open for questions.
Does anybody on the board have questions for the applicant? Mr. Ferrer?
Yeah, I'm just curious, I don't know if it says it on the application and I missed it. Are you planning on being the only physical therapist? Are you planning on having any employees?
The only physical therapist. So my hope is to become more of a hybrid practice where I'm able to go to people's homes, but also allow them to come to my home, all by appointments only, and I'll be the only one practicing.
Okay, and the other question is, a few physical therapy places I've gone to seem to be quite large. It's almost like a fitness center sort of thing, and I just wanted to clarify your proposal. You'd be doing this all within that 300 square foot portion of your basement?
Right, 300 square feet. So it all depends on the patient's needs and also the plan of care. A lot of the physical therapy clinics have fancy equipment, large treadmills, larger exercise machines. I myself already am a physical therapist, a mobile physical therapist with the company, and you really don't need more than a TheraBand and hands and the knowledge of practice of physical therapy.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else on the board have questions? Mr. Kanakis?
I apologize if I missed this, but did we get confirmation that the tenant's special conditions have been met?
No, we need to go through that, so thank you, yeah. And I'll go ahead and do that. So first, are you aware of the 10 criteria for the special exception?
Yes.
Okay, and do you, by testimony, that you adhere to all 10 of these, or we go through them each individually right now?
We can definitely go through it just in case the audience is concerned about it.
Okay, sorry. So the first is no more than one non-resident should be employed. I think we understood it. It's only going to be used, so that no more than 30% of the gross floor area or 300 square feet will be used, so that also is already by testimony covered. The use shall be carried on strictly within the principal building. That's correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The use will not change the internal or external residential character or function of the dwelling to the extent that the use will be objectionable to other residential uses in the neighborhood.
That's correct.
There shall be no exterior storage or display of any kind which is related to the home occupation.
That's correct.
The use shall not create any noise, dust, vibration, odor, smoke, glare, electrical interference, fire hazard, or nuisance to any greater or more frequent extent than not usually experienced in other residential dwellings.
That's correct.
Only goods produced on the premises and made to order for specific customer may be sold on the premises. I think it's really not applicable in this case. Shall be no advertising on the premises other than a single non-illuminated sign which shall not exceed 2 square feet in area. Such sign may only indicate the owner's name and address, and the street address shall be prominently displayed by use of numerals no smaller than 3 inches in height and no larger than 6 inches in height. So I did want to clarify because
I also wanted to clarify just that last bit.
just the sign, the way the lettering has to be of that, there's a restriction, both can't be too small or too large. That's
Okay.
what that's really trying to state.
And it's just the homeowner's name and the home address?
Yeah, so
Okay.
it may only indicate owner's name and address, and the street address shall be prominently displayed. So, yeah, it's pretty
Okay.
limited. It's not like, it can be just like a regular advertising sign of some sort.
Yeah, that's
Right.
not going to be needed.
I did want to clarify, because I think this just might have not been your intent, but in your application, you say outdoor signage limited to 2 foot by 2 foot display, which would really be 4 square feet, but
4
I
square
think
feet. Okay.
you really only allowed 1 by 2 or 1.4 by 1.4 type of thing to get, but just, so you'll adhere to no more than the 2 square feet. correct?
Okay.
Okay. Not more than 1 commercial vehicle shall be stored, parked, or otherwise situated on the premises. Such vehicle shall not exceed 25 feet in length. You have no commercial vehicle
No.
associated with this activity, right? The use will not cause vehicular traffic which is substantially different from that which currently exists on the street.
That's correct.
Okay. And again, thank you, Mr. Kanakis, for helping identify that. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, I think you're all set. You can
Okay,
have a seat,
thank
and we'll see if anybody else wants to speak in testimony. So first, I'll ask if there's anybody else present in the audience physically that would like to speak in favor of this special exception request at 11 Seminole Drive. Okay, seeing none. Is there anybody on Zoom who would like to speak in favor of this special exception at 11 Seminole Drive? Seeing none. And just a quick reminder for those on Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature that is available to help identify yourself. You can always, if you're on the video, kind of wave at us or whatever. Okay, is there anybody here present in the room that has questions, concerns, or opposition to this special exception at 11 Seminole Drive? All right, seeing none, anybody on Zoom with questions, concerns, or opposition? Okay, I believe we can close the public hearing, and we'll open the public meeting. Mr. Kanakis, your thoughts?
I'm in favor of this. It seems to be a minimal, if any, change to the interior and exterior of the property, low impact. I don't see much, if any, influence on the neighborhood, so I'm in support.
All right, thank you. Ms. Borres?
I'm also in support of the application.
Thank you. Mr. Courier?
In short, I'm support. I think it meets all the criteria. I think by the nature of the business, you really can only have one client at a time, and it is, an appointment-driven business. Also, the fact that the applicant has been in this mobile business for a while gives me confidence that, there's not going to be any startup hiccups, and I feel it'll run smoothly and not be a burden at all to the abutters.
Thank you. Mr. Minkara?
Yeah, I'm also in support of that application.
All right, thank you. And I likewise am in support, pretty much for all the reasons that my colleagues have already stated. I'll go ahead and offer, would you like to do the motion, Mr. Kanakis? That'd be
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the special exception for Javier Guitron Jr., owner, Jocelyn Guitron applicant, 11 Seminole Drive, sheet 138, lot 364, requesting special exception from Land Use Code section 190-47B for a major home occupation for an in-home physical therapy business, R9 zone, Ward 1. We find that the applicant is listed in the table of uses. The application will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety, as the business will be limited to one client at a time by appointment only. The use will not overload public water, drainage, or sewer or other municipal systems. The applicant testified that the special regulations are fulfilled, and we find that the use will not impair the integrity, or be out of character with the neighborhood, or be detrimental to health, morals, or welfare of residents.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Minkara. Any discussion on the motion? All right, I'll go ahead and do a roll call vote here. Ms. Boris, how do you vote?
Ms. Boris is in favor.
Thank you. Mr. Kanakas?
Mr. Kanakis is in favor.
Thank you. Mr. Minkara?
Mr. McCarr votes in favor.
And Mr. Curry?
Mr. Courier votes in favor.
And Mr. Shaw votes in favor. So that passes unanimously. So your application has been approved. Again, as noted before, there is a 30-day window of appeal. Somebody could request a rehearing request for this application, but you can still proceed as planned. And if you do have any questions, contact Mr. Falk or Ms. Boyer. And thank you. All right, we'll move on to case number 3. And this is owners Justin M. and Pamela A. Reardon at 11 April Drive, Sheet A, Lot 413. The request is for a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-31 to encroach 20 feet into the 20-foot required front yard setback on Dudley Street to replace an 8-foot by 12-foot shed with a new 8-foot by 12-foot shed. This is in the RA zone. Welcome, and let's see, we have somebody to present, so please go ahead and say your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to hear this evening. My name is Justin Reardon, along with my wife Pamela. We both reside at 11 April Drive. And the purpose of this request is we purchased a home on April Drive approximately 21 years ago, and it is the existing shed that is there. It is starting to, as the pictures show a little bit of its age. We are simply looking to replace it with a shed of as close to that exact same size as possible. We've identified something up at Reed's Ferry that we think, if everything is allowed, that we would go and purchase. We have looked into simply repairing the shed. The quotes that I'm receiving, the repairing of the shed would cost several $1,000s more than the cost of a new shed. So the hope is that we'll just simply be able to replace this shed, the existing shed that's been there for 21 years, with a new one.
And just to kind of reconfirm, you're placing this exactly in the same location?
Yes, yep, we're not moving
So-
anything. It's going to go right. That's the shed that we identified. We're going to try and put it right in the exact same spot. We're trying to keep it to the exact same dimensions. It's just, as I say, by look, as you can see, it's a little bit old, and we're just looking to get it swapped out for a new one.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from other board members? Mr. Curry?
Yeah, I was just curious, your application spoke to it a little, but if you could just walk us through, was there a possibility of having it more in conformance with a setback, or is there like a topography challenge? I mean, I saw some slope in the backyard, but if you could just speak to that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. We live at a corner lot. Putting the shed, there was actually no other room in the backyard to put it. The only other spot where possible would still sit on, that would encroach within the 20 feet of Dudley Avenue, and part of the backyard is a small hill, so it's not really feasible to put the shed, as it would sit on a very steep angle if we were doing something like that. So that spot for the shed is about the only spot that would really fit the shed.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, I think we're all set. You can have a seat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience that would like to speak in favor of the application? Anybody on Zoom who would like to speak in favor of the application at 11 April Drive? All right. Anybody in the audience that has questions, concerns, or opposition regarding the application? Anybody on Zoom who has questions, concerns, or opposition? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Ms. Boras, thoughts?
I'm in favor of the application as submitted. The replacement of the shed. It's a brand-new shed. And again, it would be more of a financial hardship to repair the existing shed. So I'm actually in favor of the application.
All right, thank you. Mr. Courier, your thoughts?
Just wanted to say that, you know, as per testimony, the shed's been there for at least 21 years when the applicant purchased it. So it's, to me, it's part of the neighborhood. I probably could look at this differently if it were a proposal for a new shed, but it's been there, you know, for quite a few years, over 20. And so I think that the proposal to replace it with a new tastefully looking shed from Reed's Ferry is a step up, and I think it meets the criteria. I'm in support.
Thank you. Mr. McCara?
I'm also in support. I think similar to Mr. Courier, I might not have been in support if there weren't an existing shed there. However, it is a small lot. It's a corner lot. It's tough to place. The applicant testified that there's also a hill that would make it challenging to site it elsewhere on the lot. So for all those reasons, I support it. I'd also note that there, at least from the aerial, appear to be several sheds in the neighborhood that are actually right on the property line.
Thank you. Mr. Kanakis?
I agree as well. I don't think I have anything else to add.
And I likewise am support. I pretty much what Mr. McCara was noting, and I was thinking about, like, by the time you deal with those two front yard setbacks and the rear yard setback and the side yard setback, that the shed is going to almost go in the middle of a fairly small backyard. So I think that's kind of an unreasonable requirement. And again, the fact that this has been such a long-standing use with no objections or concerns expressed, it seems perfectly warranted. So again, I'm in support. Would anybody like to offer a motion for this? Thank you, Mr. Kanakis.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the area variance for Justin M. and Pamela A. Reardon, owners, 11 April Drive, Sheet A, Lot 413, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-31 to encroach 20 feet into the 20-foot required front yard setback on Dudley Street to replace an 8x12 shed with a new 8x12 shed, RA zone, Ward 7. We find that the variance is needed to enable the applicant to propose the use of the property, given the special conditions of the property, given that it's a smaller corner lot with township topography, and the benefit sought to the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance. I find that variance is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. We find that the variance will not adversely affect the property values of surrounding parcels. The shed has been in existence for over 20 years, and replacing with a new shed will be an improvement. We find that the variance is not contrary to the public interest, and we find that the substantial justice will be done by granting the variance.
Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
Ms. Barnes, thank you.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Kanakis, how do you vote?
I vote in favor.
Mr. McCara?
Mr. Courier votes in favor.
Mr. Courier?
Mr. Courier votes in favor.
Ms. Boras?
Ms. Boris votes in favor.
And Mr. Shaw votes in favor. That passes unanimously. There is a 30-day window of appeal, but you can certainly proceed with the assumption that there is no issue with that. And again, if you have any questions, you can contact either Mr. Falk or Ms. Porter at the planning department. Right, worse, there would be notification.
Yep.
We are notified if nobody says anything, or we're only notified if somebody says something. Either way.
We'll let you know.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
All right. Moving right along, case number 4 is Norman G. Duchesne and Pamela L. Cadeau, owners at 40 Richmond Street, Sheet F, Lot 256. The request is for a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-264 for accessory use area where 40% is allowed and 58.5% is proposed to construct an attached 16-foot by 24-foot addition on the back of an existing detached garage. This is in the R9 zone. Is there somebody here to present the case?
My name's Norman Duchesne. I reside at 40 Richmond Street. I want to put an addition on the back of the garage to replace a temporary structure that I've been using for about 4 or 5 years now. The structure itself needs a new tarp, so it's either build something or replace the tarp, so I wanted to get approval for the addition. I have a lot of like lawn equipment and that kind of stuff, and I store a lot of like patio furniture in there and stuff, so that's basically,
All right.
it's gonna be behind the garage, and I'm within my setbacks and everything on the property, so.
All right. Are there any questions from the board? I don't think there are. I think we're all set. You can have a seat.
Thank you.
And we'll go ahead and see you for other testimony. Is there anybody present in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this application at 40 Richmond Street? All right. Is there anybody on Zoom who would like to speak in favor of this application? Anybody in the audience with questions, concerns, or opposition regarding Richmond Street application? And anybody on Zoom? Okay, I think we're all set. We'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Courier, thoughts?
I feel it meets the criteria. In looking at the property, I don't think you'll see this from the street because you don't see the existing temporary structure from the street. You know, I didn't go around to the other abutters to see if I thought it might be an issue to them, so I was certainly curious to see if any abutters might have issues, which they don't, and that's relieving to me. So I'm in favor. I also wanted to say that the applicant's dog kept a good job of watching me taking a look at their property out that front window. So, but anyway, I'm okay with it. I'm certainly open to hear 4 other opinions here.
All right. Mr. Minkara?
I support the application. I think, you know, I don't want to say I really struggled with it, but I think for the reasons that Mr. Courier stated, it's not going to be very apparent. Does not appear that there is, you know, opposition or concern from the neighbors. Overall, you know, the size of the structure is large, but I don't think it's unreasonable. I think it's a, you know, reasonable use of the property.
Thank you. Mr. Kanakis?
I agree. I don't see anything that would lead me to be against this variance. I think it fits.
All right, Ms. Morris?
I'm also in support for all the same reasons my colleague stated.
Thank you. I find support for the application pretty much for the same reasons noted, and I often feel that these applications as well, when you have homes that are relatively on the smaller side with a full-size garage, are already pushing the accessory use, and so if the garage was attached, there wouldn't be an issue, but because it's a detached, we do run into this. So I think from a overall intensity of use of the property, I don't find that this will be significant, and again, the other reasons I won't restate. Would somebody like to offer a motion? Oh, Mr. Kanakis, great, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the area variance. Norman G. Duchesne and Pamela L. Caddo, owners, 40 Richmond Street, GF Lot 256, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-264 for accessory use area, 40% allowed, 58.5% proposed, to construct an attached 16 by 24 addition on back of existing detached garage. So this is in the R9 zone, Ward 1. We find that the variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property, but being that it's a smaller lot with a detached garage, and that the benefit of this sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance. Find that the variance is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. Find that the variance will not adversely affect the property values of the surrounding parcels. There's no testimony against the variance from neighbors, and it doesn't appear to be visible from the street. Find that this is not contrary to the public interest, and that substantial justice will be done by granting the variance.
Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Minkara. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to a vote. Mr. Minkara?
Mr. Minkara votes in favor.
All right, Mr. Courier?
Mr. Courier votes in favor.
Ms. Boras?
Ms. Boras votes in favor.
And Mr. Kanakis?
Mr. Kanaka votes in favor.
And Mr. Shaw votes in favor. So that passes unanimously. Your application has been approved. Same 30-day window of appeal applies, but you can certainly feel free to proceed as planned. And if any questions, again, seek out Mr. Falk or Ms. Boyer in the planning department.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night. All right. Case number 5. Joseph M. and Wendy L. Schuman, owners at 9-11 DeManche Street, sheet 105, lot 59, requesting variance from Land Use Code Section 190-17, Section E, subsection 1, to exceed maximum driveway width where 24 feet is permitted. One 13-foot gravel driveway existing on west side of lot to remain as is. One 20-foot paved driveway on east side of lot for existing width of 33 feet, requesting to widen the driveway on the east side of the lot to 22 feet for a total width of 35 feet. This is in the R9 zone. Looks like you've got somebody to present the case, so please state your name and address for the record and proceed.
Joseph Schuman of 9 DeManche Street, 9 and 11 DeManche. It's a two-family home.
And are you planning on speaking?
I'm hard of hearing, I'm sorry.
Yes, so Wendy Schuman, owner of 9 and 11 DeManche Street, and we're basically just looking to have our driveway repaved, because it's old, so it has cracks and oil stains on it. My husband had originally requested to do 2 extra feet. If that's an issue, we don't have to. I just really want it to be repaved.
It's the paved driveway, existing one, it's,
Right.
we're looking to redo.
Just make sure you get close enough to the mic that it
Yes.
picks you up for the recording, so.
Like that.
So I guess maybe can I clarify that? So you said you wanted to get 2 extra feet, but you're okay if not. So is that in reference to the 20-foot going to 22 feet? You're saying you would, if
I could go without the extra 2 feet. The contractor mentioned getting it wider, but this seeming to be an issue. I don't need the extra 2 feet, but it would be nice in the winter when you're snow blowing and whatnot, because to get between the cars, it's kind of tight.
Yeah.
I mean, mainly that's it. I mean, it's for room and, kids growing up and more vehicles. It's just a two-family home, 2 cars each for the adults, and then there's no
Kids.
room for anything else in the future. Is kind of why we had that side gravel thing, but that was existing when we came in there.
Okay.
So mainly if we can just have the driveway repaved and not do the 2 feet would be fine. If we got the extra 2 feet, that would be great, but I could go without it.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Is there more about your application you want to note? I just wanted to clarify that while you were talking. I didn't want to interrupt if you had more to state as far as justifying or anything. And we have your written application certainly as well, and pictures, et cetera, and Ms. Poirier is sharing some of that right now on Zoom as well. So, I'll see if, any of the board members have questions right now? Mr. Kanakis?
Just some clarity. Can you go to picture 7 again? So would the 2 feet essentially just be in the corner of?
Yes,
the
right
land?
there, exactly.
Okay.
I wasn't even gonna move the bricks in the front, so it's
Okay.
not really widening the front. It's just, that's mainly the room I have with the snow blower. I have to go on the grass
Yeah.
when I'm doing snow removal. So mainly that's why I was gonna try for the extra.
Okay, thank you.
And just to note, this is because of where the driveway width gets measured. Is it 10 feet back, or is it vary by
Front
district? I
yard
forget.
setback.
Yeah,
So this is an R9 zone, so it's 20 feet back from the front property line.
so the rules are such that even though the driveway might, widen up after it leaves the street, because of where it's defined that the width gets measured, it would, it captures that, but by testimony, what we're understanding is that you're not actually going to change kind of the feel of the driveway at the street where it meets the street. So that's,
Right.
I think, helpful for the board, just, understanding of what you're doing, or asking for, I should say. Okay. Any other questions from the board for the applicants?
I have a
Mr. Currier?
question.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I got a little lost. There's the east side driveway and the west side driveway, if we want to call it that, which is currently gravel. And what is the width of the east side and the width of the west side?
It's
you
13
13
feet
feet
on the gravel,
and
and
22.
it's 20 feet existing in the front, which the 2 feet wouldn't be making any difference in the front, because it's, where you saw in the picture, it's going to be from the bricks that I have in the front to make it wider. Right
Okay,
there.
yeah,
Right there was like where it's gonna be the extra 2 feet. It's inside the driveway onto my property. Off of the
Okay,
ci-
thank you. Yep, I got it, thanks. All set.
All right, any other questions from the board? All right, I think you can have a seat. I think we're all set with your testimony. Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak in favor of the application at 911 Demanche Street? Is there anybody on Zoom who would like to speak in favor? Anybody in the audience with questions, concerns, or opposition?
To exceed max.
Anybody on Zoom with questions, concerns, or opposition? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. McCara?
I support the application. I think that the gravel driveways exist. And their request to pave the existing driveway, I think is, pretty clearly necessary. A widening of the additional 2 feet, especially in the way it was explained, I think is reasonable. This is a two-family home. There are a lot of vehicles. 20 feet wide is challenging with 2 cars parked side by side. So for those reasons, I support the application, and I support the 22 feet.
Thank you. Mr. Kanakis?
I'm also in support of the application up to the 22 feet for the reasons given by Mr. McCarron.
Great, thank you. Ms. Morris?
I'm also in support of the application as stated by my colleagues.
All right, Mr. Currier?
I'm in support. I was struggling with the extra 2 feet, but I appreciate Mr. Mincara's clarification of that, so I'm okay with it as presented.
All right, and I'm also in support for the reasons stated, and likewise, I think this was just one of those applications that was a little hard to kind of understand exactly what was going on, but I think it kind of makes a lot more sense, and I think the use isn't really changing, and even the impact of the additional couple feet that you're adding, at least in my view, is minimal, and yet I think will add great value and benefit to the property owner. So, okay, so I think we're ready to take a motion, if anybody would like to do that. All right, thank you, Mr. Knapp.
Make a motion to approve the area variance for Joseph M. and Wendy L. Sheehan, owners, 9-11 Mont Street, sheet 105, lot 59, requesting variance from Land Use Code, section 190-17E1, to exceed maximum driveway width, 24 feet permitted, 1 13-foot driveway existing on the west side of the lot, remain as is, 1 20-foot paved driveway on the east side of the lot, for existing width of 33 feet. Requesting to widen the driveway on the east side of the lot to 22 feet for a total width of 35 feet. This is in the R9 zone, Ward 6. Find that the variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property, being that the size of the driveway is tight for the use of the property as a two-family residence, and the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than variance. I find that the variance is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. The variance will not adversely affect the property values of the surrounding parcels. It will improve the driveway that sorely needs to be repaved. The use is not contrary to the public interest, and substantial justice will be done by granting the variance.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. McCara. Any discussion? I think one thing I'll quick add, I think it almost is implied, but, the other thing is, this has pretty much been an existing usage of 33 feet in width, and the increased use is only by these 2 feet. So this is not a case of somebody coming in and wanting to put a lot more driveway width in, where there hasn't been some existing for a long time. So just wanted to kind of get that captured in our discussion at least. So, all right, I think we're ready for a vote. Mr. Courier.
Mr. Courier votes in favor.
Thank you. Ms. Borres.
Ms. Borres votes in favor.
Mr. Kanakis.
Mr. Kanakis votes in favor.
Mr. Minkara.
Mr. Minkara votes in favor.
And Mr. Shaw votes in favor. That passes unanimously, so your application is approved. You can feel free to proceed as planned, just with that cautionary note that somebody still could appeal our decision. If you have any questions about that process or just anything else that you need clarified, you can always contact Mr. Falk or Ms. Poirier in the planning department.
Providing documentation for Champion to start this Friday? That's when they come in.
We'll have the approval letter for you tomorrow, so.
Call it in the morning and tell them to.
Sure.
Very good.
We'll email it to you.
All right, good luck. Have a good night.
Who seconded that last motion?
Mr. Minkara.
Okay, got it, thanks.
Everybody okay to keep going? All right, we'll proceed with case number 6. James Cooper and Connor Feathers at 302-A and 302-B Pine Street, Sheet 102, Lot 179. The request is for a variance from Land Use Code, Section 190-17, Section E, subsection 1, to exceed to exceed maximum driveway width, 24 feet permitted, no pavement existing, 48 feet proposed for duplex condex, where each unit is requesting 24 feet in width. This is in the RB zone. Is there somebody here to present this application?
Yes, I'm Connor Feathers. I'm
Feel
here
free
for-
to raise that stand up so the mic, that pivots, or the whole arm pivots if you
Okay,
want.
yeah, it's fine here.
Okay.
I'm Connor Feathers. I'm here from 302B Pine Street. I'm also here with,
I'm Heather Clark for 302A Pine Street, and I believe James Cooper, the owner, is on the line as well.
All right.
so we are requesting
This is James Cooper, 302A Pine Street. This is James Cooper.
Okay, great, thank you.
We're here requesting a variance from the land use to exceed the maximum driveway width of 24 feet for a proposed driveway width of approximately 48 feet. That would be 24 feet belonging to each condex. So a little bit about the property. It is zoned as a single property, but it operates independently. It is not symmetrical, just additionally, each unit looks different from the front. We believe that 24 feet would be insufficient for each condo as a whole, that being 12 feet per condex. This would be about as much to have a very comfortable single parking spot for one car each. Having 48 feet or 24 feet per property would make for a much more comfortable parking situation. It would also be much more visually appealing as a not undersized driveway. It would also increase our property value, and we believe that it would be beneficial to the abutters. The current driveway is a mixture of dirt and grass, and it is unpaved. Additionally, James has lived at 302A in Nashua for about 20 so years. I've been there about the beginning of the winter. And one thing I noticed was when shoveling the driveway, the unfinished surface made it very difficult to clear all the snow. So we had some ice, and we believe that driveway would make it much easier for us to clear all the snow off of the property, pose less of a slipping hazard, and just be more comfortable for parking all of our vehicles. And all around, we just believe this would meet all of the original intentions of the land use law.
As Mr.
Sorry,
Feathers
can you
said.
just state your name and address?
I'm sorry.
Just so
Heather
that-
Clark, 302A Pine Street.
Thank you.
As Mr. Feathers had mentioned, Mr. Cooper had lived at the address for approximately 20 years as an owner, and it's almost paid off now, and would like to make updates to the home. And a paved driveway would be more aesthetically pleasing to the eye for the neighborhood because it's dirt and weeds and some areas of grass. And Mr. Cooper will keep the grass on the left side of the driveway along the fence line, keeping that aesthetic more appealing for the neighborhood as well.
Thank you. And I don't know if Mr. Cooper, since it's kind of a joint application here, if you wanted to also offer any testimony as well right now?
Sure. This is James Cooper, 302A Pine Street. One thing that we had talked about when trying to differentiate or separate the driveway versus making a single pad, we've kind of been going back and forth on this, and it seemed like for a while there had been, like, they had wanted to have a separation, and then we kind of threw around having a separation, you know, 8 to 10 feet non-paved in the middle. I have decided I don't really want that particularly. I would like to go to the edge of my property line, and whatever I'm allowed, 12, 20, 24, I'd like to go towards my house because I don't have a whole lot of room past that, because I have Hunt Street across the street and I've only got a 50 feet, you know, I have to be within 50 feet of the intersection, which is across the street. So it only leaves me a couple of feet past the edge of my house. But the bigger issue is, as Connor has mentioned, you know, I've been there a while, and the snow, I don't want a trip hazard. I don't want an ankle twister. You know, I think having that middle section unpaved would be problematic with trying to weed whack it and run my ride-on lawnmower. One other thing I'd like to point out is that Connor, as mentioned, just recently moved in. He's a younger guy, so he's got a few roommates, so he's got a handful of cars that he needs paving for. And as well, my girlfriend had just moved in at the beginning of June. Her son, he's got a friend or two that come by, and I've got a motorcycle. You know, as it is, it's already looks like a driveway or a parking lot without any pavement, if that makes any sense, you know. So, like 12 feet each side, just, you know, like the guy before us stated, you know, you're not really going to get more than one car comfortably in 12 feet, you know what I mean? Like, so that's all I want to say on that.
So I'd like to clarify one thing, because we have a couple of the drawings that are part of the application, and so I think what I'm hearing is that you're now kind of saying you want the 48 feet continuous pavement?
I spoke to Jim, Connor Feathers, 302B Pine Street. I spoke to Jim earlier today just to clarify what he had just mentioned. So there's two drawings that we submitted with the application. If you look at the first one, there's a gap in the middle that's about 8 feet wide.
Yep.
So what Jim, the one up there. So Jim would like, off the center line of the house, he would like to have all of that paved so that there's no separation in the front. We've agreed to this, and that would still be within the original 48 feet proposed. This would also just have no tripping hazard, but that middle section there that has no grass or gravel, it's the way it is existing, we would just like to have that completely paved.
I know, at least personally, like, to me, the thought of having 48 feet of continuous pavement, looking like one massive, like, small parking lot versus two 24-foot driveways separated by some amount of grass and keeping them is a more appealing solution, I think, from aesthetic, and when we have to consider something like this. So,
Yep, and-
so the board might, we'll have to see what the board feels like, but, I just want to offer that back, that I appreciate some of where you guys are coming from, but I also think there's some things that, as we try to, weigh these trade-offs, that why we might not be, at least I know personally, I'm not quite as inclined to be as comfortable with that kind of proposal as what was presented in the drawings, so.
Yep, and the reason why we submitted 2 drawings was to allow discussion for this matter. That was originally brought up when we had discussed the driveway months ago. So we're looking to have the driveway paved and trying to find what would be satisfactory to the board.
But I guess I just want to clarify.
James
Hang on one
Cooper,
sec.
302A
Yeah,
Pine. I'd like to cut in real quick.
Let me, can I ask my question first, please, as chair?
Sure, sorry. Yes.
You presented 2 drawings, both show amounts of grass of different amounts, but now what I believe we're hearing is that you really would, essentially are proposing a 3rd drawing that we don't have, which would be a complete continuous pavement. Is that correct?
302A, James Cooper here. It doesn't, in my point of view, I don't feel like we have to have the full 48 feet, but to have a gap, another reason why not to have the gap in the middle is, one, it's an eyesore as it is now, so there is no real grass. It's weeds and dirt and sand and gravel mixed together, and it's basically just going to be an ugly spot that he's got to tend to half of it and I've got to tend to half of it, and I've pretty much come to the point, because I've been there 22 years, I don't want to tend to that 4-foot section where my stairway is, basically. So even if you don't want to allow the full variance or whatever we're talking about, I would like whatever I am allowed for my side, I would like my driveway to be in line with my half of the property going left to the end of my house. That is 24 feet that I'm asking for, which is the edge of my stairs or the middle of the property line to basically the edge of my home. That's the 24 feet that I was trying to request. If the city says you can only have 20 feet, or you can only have 12 feet, or you can only have 16 feet, I still would like to come from the middle point out. I do not want to tend to the 4-foot section of dirt and grass and weeds in the middle, because people are going to park there, 1, anyway, and 2, like I said, I have a ride-on mower, and it just kicks rocks up left and right. He's got 4 cars on the right. I've got 3 to 4 cars on a motorcycle on the left, and I just don't want to deal with that middle portion. So if you're not going to let us connect it, regardless whether you give me 12 or 24, I'm still going to put it from the middle out, and then I can go in 10 feet and go around the side of the house like I was planning on doing anyway. Is 12 feet really going to do it for the 3 cars on the motorcycle I have there right now? No, but I don't want to deal with the middle section and having to deal with the grass and the gravel and and rolling an ankle when I step out because it's snow there and I can't see it. You know what I mean? Like, I understand the aesthetics of keeping the gap and making it look like 2 separate driveways. The last thing I would like to point out is that Pine Street, that section of Pine, which actually turns right into Noel, is on a very slight downgrade. So everything rolls downhill, and it goes towards the 302B side, which would be Connor Feather's side. So if there's a gap there, all the drainage, all the runoff, all the water is going to pool either in between the 2, or it's going to run down his side, and it's not just going to come off in one sheet, if that makes any sense.
Yes. Ms. Poirier, can you go to the next slide? Because I think, if I'm understanding you, Mr. Cooper, I think you're, at least from your perspective, you would like to have the driveway kind of configured, at least in this fashion, relative to your unit, where the pavement starts at the center line and comes over. And then the question is kind of potentially for Mr. Feathers as to whether or not he has his driveway more like this drawing or something more akin to where they both meet up at the same spot.
So when I do have 3 drawings, Connor Feathers 302B here. I do have 3 drawings. We had submitted 2. However, after further discussion with Jim, it was a little bit after we submitted this. I do have a 3rd drawing. I don't know if you want, I can hand it to you.
We can take it, and we will have to keep it for the record for up to 30 days.
Okay,
but, if you
so
want
I-
to have that for testimony, we definitely can pass it around,
Yep.
and everybody can look at it.
And, yeah, okay, I'll just give it to you.
Yeah, or actually, you could take it up to Ms. Morris on the stairs, and she can pass it over.
I'd like to add to Heather Clark, 302A Pine Street. I just wanted to add to what Jim Cooper said about the runoff. And the worry is that it will cause damage to the driveway on 302B with that runoff and potentially, get damaged over a short period of time.
Connor Feathers, 302B. So we had, Jim and I had spoken to Stan's Paving, who we were using, but they had mentioned that it would make more sense to have the 2 driveways connected than leaving a small gap in between, just for water getting underneath, mainly my side, ice forming. In the winter when we're snow blowing and shoveling, we're often piling up the snow in the center line, and I'm pushing it towards the back, and it would just be very prone to that edge getting damaged.
All right, thank you. And
One last thing to add, James Cooper, 302A Pine Street. When I originally called George at Stan's Paving, and had him come out and do all the estimate, et cetera, and then I got Connor involved to see if he wanted to do the paving, and then realized it was going to be a whole new can of worms and all of this stuff. Basically, it got real confusing between the engineering department, who lets the permits out, and the planning and zoning, which is where we're at now. And basically, the owner of Stan's Paving, George, claims that he talked to Tom, I believe it's Tom in engineering, I'm sorry, I don't know, I'm getting names mixed up, but there were 2 different individuals at engineering, and supposedly he went to the higher up, who had pre-okayed us having this with no gap. And then the day they came out to do the paving, the other guy said, no, you can only pave from here over because you're too close to a stop sign. But when it came down to it, and I went down to Town Hall and City Hall and talked to Carter, and he basically said, no, in the email from Kate, which was before I went to talk to Carter, basically said, there was 2 issues here. One was, the stop bar, but since you're not considered a corner lot, the stop bar is not an issue, and 50 feet is not an issue. And the guy who came out and stopped my paving from happening on April 9th, over a month ago, basically was incorrect in that. There's 50 feet from the intersection, but I was within the 50 feet of the intersection. I wasn't past that, you know what I'm saying? So I was in the clear on the 50 feet of the actual intersection. The stop sign had no relevance to the whole case, and the guy in engineering had already said that he would approve the 24 feet both sides with no gap. And it wasn't until the guy came and shut it all down because I was too close to a stop sign, which wasn't actually a problem, that we got to this whole point, if that makes any sense. I know that's a lot going on, but trust me, it's been a lot going on for me too.
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense, and, we found out there's an issue here, or you found out there was an issue that maybe it was identified for the wrong reason, but in the end, if you had proceeded,
Right.
you wouldn't have been in conformance, so it's probably just as well something.
Right.
All right, I think,
Connor Feathers, 302B Pine Street. My final comment is, of the 3 drawings, we would be in favor of you disapproving one rather than disapproving the whole variance. So if there's a drawing that you do believe meets the land use law and its original intentions, we're open to suggestions. Thank you.
I also want to wait and see if I've kind of dominated. I haven't asked for any other board comments or questions if there are. Mr. Carrier.
I'm just wondering, how long has this structure been a condex? Did it start out as one home, or has it always been a condex, or what's the history of that?
This is James Cooper, 302A Pine Street. I am not 100% sure. I know that I bought the property, or I bought my half of the condex in 2000. So I believe when I was talking to, I'm not sure if it was Kate or if it was a different woman, but I believe it actually was, oh man, now I can't think of her name. It was another woman in one of those two departments, but she pretty much had said that she said my dwelling had been built in 2001, and I was like, well, actually, no, it hasn't. It might have been turned into a condex in 2000 or whatever it was, but it was built in 1984. So my guess is that the information she got when she thought that the house was built in 2000 was actually when it was converted to the condex. I believe the original owner of the unit, I don't know why they subdivided it or how they subdivided it. I just know I was a 25-year-old kid with a baby on the way and I needed a home. So.
Okay, thank you. I guess a question for Mr. Shaw. That third drawing that you have, could you just give me a walkthrough of what you're seeing on drawing number 3?
Yeah, it's pretty much kind of a combo of taking, of taking the drawing that shows there's the two existing drawings we have right now, right? So if you take I think it's in the order, it's the second drawing that has the driveway at 302A up to the center line. That's essentially the way they're proposing in the third drawing for the 302A side. But then for the 302B side, to basically bring the driveway that's shown in either drawing of the first or the second, but just bringing that all the way up to the property line. So in the end, in fact, I think actually, I don't know, there's probably a scale thing that didn't quite translate here exactly in the drawing, but if you look back to the first drawing, it's essentially just, it's really very much like the first drawing and just filling in that center part. But I'm sure, the adjustments need to be refined for where the actual 48 feet would be. But the general shape and proposal very much looks like the first drawing with that middle section filled in, and otherwise the general form is like that.
James Cooper at 302A Pine Street. So yes, if it is one continuous 48, it would basically be the width of the house. My side is 24 feet, his side is 24 feet, so basically the driveway would come to the edge of the outside of the homes.
So it wouldn't overhang beyond to the right of 302B then? Okay.
Correct. It will go around on 302A. Yeah. It'll go, kind of circle around the back like it should be shown in all the photos. That'll stay the same.
I guess I have one other question, and it's directed to Mr. Falk. On the drawings, if Kate wants to put any of those drawings back up, there's like a dotted line that runs parallel to the edge of Pine Street. And like right there, Kate's mouse is on the line I'm thinking of. So my question is either to Ms. Pori or to Mr. Falk, is that where the driveway can be expanded, so to speak, beyond that because it's far enough away from the road, whatever that setback is? I don't recall off the top of my head.
That's correct, Mr. Courier. That appears to be the front yard setback. And after that dotted line going towards the structure, the driveway can get wider.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board, Mr. McCara?
You've mentioned 48 feet. On one of the drawings, the one that has the 9-foot grass section in it, one driveway for 302A is 20 feet wide, and the second one for 302B is 24 feet wide. Is that an error?
In that drawing that's shown above, Connor Feathers, 302B Pine Street, in that drawing that's shown above with the 24 feet, that was an option to extend the driveway on 302B. It could also be 20 feet. So
this is James Cooper at 30. This is James Cooper at 302A Pine. The reason so when we talked about having the middle section being left unpaved, whatever it was, 8 or 10 feet in the middle unpaved, what that left me to the edge of my house was about 20 feet, if I remember, since the property's 24 wide. If you take the steps, my 4 feet of steps out of the equation, his 4 feet of steps out of the equation, that was the 8 feet we were going to leave unpaved. I didn't want to extend my paving past the parallel line of the edge of my home. I just thought that would look funny. Plus, it started encroaching close to that 50-foot line, which I have from Hunt Street across the street. So across our property is Hunt Street and the intersection, and that I have to be 50 feet. So that only leaves me 3 or 4 feet outside of the edge of the property, but it was more a visual thing and more an aesthetic thing that I didn't want the driveway extending past the line of the home, if that makes sense. So I was going to leave it at 20 feet. So, but my biggest issue is, like I said, I don't want to tend or deal with the 4 feet of gappage that I would have to tend to deal with, that I already tend to deal with. So if I had to, I would just move everything to the right, to the center line,
So the drawing,
whatever I get, 6 feet.
The drawing on this, can you go back a second, Kate? So that drawing does show the 44 feet, so they're not asking for the full 48 there. Mr. Kanakis?
No. Was there any consideration to just doing a 24-foot driveway for the first 10 feet until you get to the setback and then widening it as much as you need?
Connor Feathers, 302B Pine Street. That was originally proposed when we talked to planning and zoning. However, with how the parking works in the front, that would leave about 1 car parked per unit on the driveway, and then the other cars that would park there would be off on the dirt, and it just looks weird.
It would be much, yeah, James Cooper, 302A Pine Street. It would definitely be much less visually attractive. Like as it sits now, we're parking 8 cars there half the time and a motorcycle anyway. We just don't have any pavement.
Any other questions from the board? All right, thank you. You guys can rest, and we'll, is there anybody else in the audience who is in support of this application? Anybody on Zoom who is in support of this application? Anybody in the audience with questions, concerns, or opposition? And anybody with questions, concerns, opposition on Zoom? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Kanakis.
I'm struggling to find support for this one. Just 48 feet just seems massive for a driveway for this lot in this neighborhood at that size. I feel like there's other solutions to this issue rather than just paving that much within the setback area. So right now I'm leaning against.
Ms. Barnes?
I'm also struggling with the same concerns, and at this point here, I'm also against as proposed.
Mr. Ferrier, your thoughts?
Well, I'm struggling also. I mean, I want to clarify something that while I certainly empathize that the applicants have a lot of vehicles and a motorcycle, et cetera, that's not a criteria that this board is to consider. The board considers a situation like this for the lot size, not the applicant's use or how many vehicles they might possess at any one time. And just wanted to make sure that the board understands, as I'm sure they do, but the applicant understands that that's the criteria that we're bound to go with. The 48 feet, I'm struggling with that. I could see that some driveway relief is warranted on this lot. I just don't see the 48 feet. I think it'll look out of character with the neighborhood. I can't put a finger, nor do I think I need to kind of guess or design a finger of perhaps how much relief is needed, but what's in front of us is 48 feet, and I'm not finding that meets a criteria. That's where I'm at.
Mr. McCarr, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Courier in that I could probably find my way to some relief, given that this is an unusual situation, but I can't see the 48 feet, and certainly not in one contiguous, basically, parking lot. I'm also not comfortable, with kind of the multiple choice, here are 3 options, pick one, or maybe it could be different. I don't really want to design this, but I'm definitely not comfortable with 48 feet in general, and certainly I'm not comfortable with that lack of separation.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I'm kind of at the same spot, and, I pretty much already noted even kind of my thought early on in my questioning that I definitely am not comfortable with the continuous 48 feet. And I looked at this, when I look at this lot and I look at the kind of the aerial view, this lot is, wider than a lot of the other lots nearby. And I could see, especially with it being the condex, again, to the same point that both Mr. McCarr and Mr. Courier made, that, some relief seems, potentially reasonable and warranted. But I think it is a little difficult at this point with what's been presented, the multiple options, and yeah. So I guess it sounds like maybe I'm fairly much at the same spot as most of the rest of the board is. So, any more discussion or thoughts?
Mr. Shaw?
Yes, Mr. Carrier.
Yeah, I guess I appreciate the applicants at 302A, the testimony about wanting to keep away from the stop sign, if that's an issue. When I site walked the property, I didn't even come upon that as a potential issue. But for what it's worth, I was feeling like a driveway on the right side and the left side where you could extend it back because it's kind of a deep property. I'm just kind of speaking design, not what's in front of us, and this doesn't adhere to what the applicant of 302A was describing. But prior to that, I was thinking, wow, if there was a driveway on the right and left, they could go further back, as far back as they wanted, and really have a lot of space there. But I guess I just throw that out as what was on my mind prior to seeing these designs, where I happened to do a site walk when we first got the agenda. But that's all. I just wanted to throw that out, because that is in line with the lack of desire to have a continuously wide kind of parking lot as one of the proposals is. So I just wanted to throw that out. Thanks for listening.
Sure. I don't know if anybody on the board feels like we should possibly consider a motion to table and see if the applicant is interested in actually coming back with something that's more certain and versus the multiple choice, and or if we just let this stand as is and they can always reapply. So I don't know if anybody has an opinion about that.
I'd be more comfortable coming to a decision on this if we had one concrete plan to go with, rather than the 3, choose which way we go that we have right now.
So would you be in favor of a motion to table and let the applicant come back if they're interested in doing that?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I'm going to make a motion to reopen the public hearing so we can just get testimony from the applicants to see if they are open to that, and then we can go from there. So is there a second to opening? Okay. And we'll do a quick roll call vote. Mr. Courier, in favor of reopening the public hearing?
Yes, I'm in favor of that.
Okay.
Mr. Courier's in favor.
I'm also in favor.
Mr. Knuckles?
I'm also in favor.
Mr. McCarr?
Mr. McCarr is in favor.
And Mr. Shaw is in favor, so that passes. We're reopened in the public hearing. And thank you for coming back up, and you've obviously heard our discussion, and wanted to see if you are interested in possibly doing something with coming back with a modified proposal and a single proposal, if you will.
Yep. Connor Feathers, 302B Pine Street. Thank you for reopening that. And speaking on behalf of 302B, I would be interested in a new proposal for the I guess, outside of the lot being paved. In one of the drawings, you could see that that was sort of the concept with a walkway over to my front steps. I believe we could also come up with a plan for 302A side, but I will let Jim speak to his. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
This is James Cooper, 302A Pine Street. As somebody pointed out, and I appreciate them for at least pointing this out, that while they didn't notice the 50-foot intersection and would have been a problem, which they pointed out to me, so I knew it was a problem, when they came out on April 9th, they pretty much told me I couldn't have anything 50 feet from the stop sign on my side of the street, which pretty much left me 0 paved driveway. Like, literally the width of my steps was what they told me I could pave that day. Then I find out that it's 50 feet from the stop sign across the street. So as the guy mentioned when he brought it up, and I appreciate it, I can't put a driveway on the left side up against my fence, which would look nice. I agree. Having a 12 or whatever on my side up against the fence and going all the way back, that would look nice. But I can't do that because I don't have that capability. I don't, that's another thing I'm not in code for. So it really limits the amount of.
Mr. Cooper, can I?
So,
Mr. Cooper?
And the last thing I would like to state.
Can I just interrupt you? We mainly just want to know if you are open to coming back with a different proposal. We don't need to hear, I obviously understand you have a lot of considerations on this, but basically the board either is going to vote tonight to make a decision, or we're leaving it up to you and your co-applicant if you're open to coming back, and we would prefer to do that. So it's pretty much, we really just need a yes or no from you if you're interested in that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you. So I'll reclose the public hearing. We're back in our public meeting. So I think we definitely have concurrence from the applicants that they are open to looking at something modified. So one thing I failed to ask about, but we typically do table an application like this to a date certain. So that could be, our next meeting is in 2 weeks, and then the following meeting is July 12th, I believe. We normally end up, unless it's super urgent, suggesting like 2 meetings out, so like the July 12th meeting, but I don't know if.
Suggest the July 12th meeting.
Would be the appropriate one, yeah. So unless that's a known issue for you as applicants, we'll table until July 12th. Okay, we just, I'll make a motion to that effect that we will table this case. Well, let me read it into the record just so we have that formality. Owners James Cooper and Connor Feathers, owners of 302A and 302B Pine Street, sheet 102, lot 179, where the request is requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-17, Section E, subsection 1, to exceed maximum driveway width, 24 feet permitted, no pavement existing, 48 feet is proposed for a duplex condex, where each unit is requesting 24 feet in width. This is in the RB zone. I make a motion based on the discussion that the board has had, the input that we've sought from the applicants, that with the issue of multiple kind of options presented to us, the board's concerns about doing a full 48 feet, that the applicants will reconsider if there's a different proposal that they want to bring back to the board, and we'll table this until the July 12th zoning board meeting. Is there a second to the motion? Thank you, Ms. Flores. Any discussion on the motion? All right. Ms. Boras, how do you vote?
Ms. Boras is in favor of the motion.
Thank you. Mr. Courier.
Mr. Courier is in favor of the motion to table to July 12th.
Thank you. Mr. McCarr?
Mr. McCarr is in favor.
Mr. Kanakis?
Mr. Kanakis is in favor.
And Mr. Shaw is in favor. That passes unanimously. So again, the application will be reheard in 4 weeks' time. And good luck with that. We'll see you then. Okay. And then we have one final case, number 7 for the evening. We'll go right into that. The owners are Robert J. and Nicole Schwartz, 19 Brookline Street, sheet 64, lot 154, requesting the following variances. Firstly, from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16-3, to encroach 18 feet into the 25-foot required front yard setback on Gordon Street to construct an attached single-story 12-foot by 20-foot 8-inch garage addition. And secondly, from Land Use Code Section 190-17, Section E, subsection 2, to construct a new driveway within approximately 25 feet of the intersection of Brookline Street and Gordon Street, where a minimum of 50 feet is required, while eliminating existing driveways on Manchester Street and Gordon Street. This is in the RA zone, and looks like we have somebody here to present the case. Please state your name and address for the record, and go ahead and tell us about what you're seeking relief for.
Hello, thanks for having me. Nicole Schwartz, 19 Brookline Street. I sent pictures and drawings to the best of my ability. I am mom of 3 little ones who unfortunately enjoy playing in the driveway, and who unfortunately we have to load in and out of the existing driveway on Manchester and Gordon. Our plan is to eliminate those 2 driveways so that we can have a safer place to get our kids in and out of the car on the much more desirable side of Brookline, where the front of our house actually is. So that is the one variance there, and of course would be too close to a corner to do without coming here in front of you guys. And the second part, while spending all of this money, we would like to, instead of having the single car garage, make that a two-car garage. Ease of our life and a safer place for our kids. And if you are familiar with my home or that corner, the pulling in and out of my driveway is certainly a hazard, not just for my family, but for people pulling in and out of Gordon Street, parents dropping off at St. Chris, looping around, coming out, coming in the morning, and also just the traffic. It's a frequent stop in traffic on Manchester Street to pull in and out of those driveways.
All right.
Open to
You're all
questions.
set, that's fine. Does the board have any questions? Mr. McCarr?
Probably for staff, really, but is it fair to assume that the existing driveway also does not comply with the 50-foot requirement?
I was told it didn't. I was told both of those driveways are illegal, so I'm asking for one illegal driveway instead of 2.
They're probably both within the 50-foot intersection, and, you know, as the applicant said, you know, when our staff saw this, we were like pretty happy that they were doing this, because that is a major safety concern for not just them as homeowners, but guests and family pulling into their driveway, and pedestrians. There's a lot of people who walk on that street. So, you know, we thought this was a great plan to eliminate those 2 driveways and have a safer driveway on the other location. So it's getting rid of 2 nonconformities. And even though they'd be creating a driveway closer, it's in a much better position than these 2. So we thought it was a great idea.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? All right, seeing none, I think you're all set. You can have a seat.
Yeah, did we discuss the garage too, that it's too close? I guess it's technically 2 variances I'm here for.
Yeah,
So that's all inclusive? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, we have 2 variances, but we oftentimes, in cases like this, they're pretty much just kind of grouped together, and we treat that.
Thank
So I
you.
appreciate, thanks for checking. Yeah. We have nobody else in the audience and nobody else on Zoom that's not part of the planning department or Mr. Kerr, so we definitely have no other testimony verbally, but we do have, we did receive an email from Michael Richards at 17 Brookline Street, noting as abutters of 19 Brookline Street property, my wife Andrea Richards and myself, Michael Richards, have no issues with the proposed changes and believe that the variance should be issued. The current location of the driveway poses a safety risk given its proximity to Manchester Street. This relocation would greatly mitigate those safety risks. We agree with Ms. Schwartz's rationale in her variance application and strongly support granting said variance. Unfortunately, due to other commitments, we are unable to attend in person. Would like to see Mel to serve as our support of granting this variance. So we have that letter of support in the record. So with that, I'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Let's see. Ms. Boras, thoughts?
I would like to hear from my other colleagues first, please.
Okay. Mr. Kerr?
Overall, I'm in support of the application. I have to say, I didn't get it at first. And then in looking at the property, I had never driven on Brookline Street before, but to me, the light bulb went on saying, geez, if I lived here, I think I'd want to get on and off of Brookline Street because Manchester Street is, you know, regrettably, not many people do the speed limit on it. And so while in a way this is a big ask, what the application states and what I believe it's a step up, it's an improvement from what's there. I mean, in terms of the two-car garage, I think that's kind of typical for the neighborhood. I mean, there is an encroachment there, but I think they've thought through the plan. And so I was struggling a little bit with the garage, but I've come around because I don't think it'll look out of place. I was certainly open to hear what, you know, the neighborhood or abutters might think, but there's only support, and that really pushed me over the edge. Like Mr. Falk says, I think it's a step up, and I think it meets the criteria, and I'm good with both requests.
All right, Mr. McCarr?
I agree. Excuse the voice. A two-car garage is reasonable. I think it's consistent with the neighborhood, and this is really the logical location to put it. There aren't really too many other options, if any. And I would also just note that they've got street frontage on 3 sides of this lot. It really is quite unique in that sense. And no question, the driveways that are there now are non-conforming, and this would greatly, I think, improve the situation, you know, a much safer outcome.
Mr. Kanakis, your thoughts?
I agree as well. I'm in support. We're taking the 2 non-conforming driveways that are currently a bit of a safety hazard. The way they're laid out and turning into one, well, still non-conforming, but much safer driveway. And given that this is a tough double corner lot, which I don't know that I've seen before, I think this is really the best way to do it.
Thank you. And I'm also in support. I mean, I think this is one of those times where I feel like, you know, oftentimes when I don't know, when I feel like we consider applications, sometimes it's harder for me to think about the spirit and intent of the ordinance and not contrary to public interest. This seems like a time where these are really kind of paramount reasons and benefits. Just the whole safety issue really comes up there, and I think the property is already very unique in its 3 frontages, et cetera. So I appreciate staff's opinion, and I think that yeah, it's pretty easy to see how this is a net positive for the community from a safety perspective, for the homeowner themselves, and pretty much so to me it really makes sense. And the driveway addition, the garage addition is very much a normal and expected kind of usage. So yeah, I'm very much in support of this application. Any other?
I thank my colleagues for the clarity, and now with all that being said, I'm also in support of the application.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or discussion? I think I'll go ahead and would somebody like to make a motion? Thank you, Mr. Kanaka.
I make a motion to approve the area variance for Robert J. and Nicole Schwartz, owners, 19 Brookline Street, sheet 64, lot 154, requesting 2 variances, 1 from Land Use Code, section 190-16, table 16-3, to encroach 18 feet into the 25-foot required front yard setback on Gordon Street to construct an attached single-story 12 by 20 12-foot by 20-foot 8-inch garage addition, and 2 from Land Use Code Section 190-17E2 to to construct a new driveway within approximately 25 feet of the intersection of Brookline Street and Gordon Street, minimum of 50 feet required, while eliminating existing driveways on Manchester Street and Gordon Street. This is in the RA zone, Ward 2. I find that the variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property, those being that it currently has frontage on 3 sides and has 2 currently non-existing driveways, or non-conforming driveways. And the benefit sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance. We find that the application is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance because it provides a safer means of entry and exit into the home and is in character with the neighborhood. We find that the variance will not adversely affect the property values of surrounding parcels. There's support from the neighbors for the application. We find that it is not contrary to the public interest, and substantial justice will be served by granting the application.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Minkara. Any discussion on the motion? Just one other thing I'll add, kind of, back to the garage addition itself. The 12-foot width that's requested is pretty much like a minimum of what you need to do with a single car kind of garage addition. So I feel like that already is not asking for really anything more than pretty much is what seems to be absolutely necessary to meet that kind of thing. So this is not a larger ask than what might be necessary. So I just wanted to comment on that as well. All right, I think we're probably ready to vote. Mr. Kanakis.
I vote in favor.
Mr. Minkara.
Mr. Minkara votes in favor.
Mr. Courier.
Mr. Courier votes in favor of both requests.
Mrs. Boras.
Ms. Boras votes in favor.
And Mr. Shaw votes in favor as well. That passes unanimously, so it is approved. You can proceed with your plans. As noted, there is the 30-day window appeal. And any questions of any kind, contact Mr. Falk or Ms. Boyer. And good luck with your project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that closes out our regular cases for the evening. We do have minutes. Actually, I'm not sure which order I can't even think which order we normally do this. Do we do minutes or the next agenda next?
Either
Doesn't
or.
really matter, does it?
Doesn't really matter.
Yeah, okay. So we have
Minutes are
minutes. I've got to find them. In the May 24th meeting, Mr. Carrier.
Yeah, just one minor correction on case number 4. This town of Stowe, Mass. is spelled S-T-O-W. Stowe, Vermont is S-T-O-W-E, so that should be corrected if Mr. Falk could truncate the E.
Okay.
Good catch.
Will do.
Anything else? Anybody? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
All right, second. Mr. Kanakis, thank you. Mr. Minkara, how do you vote?
Mr. Minkara votes in favor.
Mr. Courier?
Mr. Courier votes in favor.
Ms. Boras?
Ms. Boras votes in favor.
Mr. Kanakis?
Mr. Kanakis votes in favor.
And Mr. Shaw votes in favor. That passes unanimously. So those minutes are approved. And then we do have the agenda for the June 28th meeting. There are 3 cases. Has anybody had a chance to look to see if there's any concerns about regional impact? I definitely do not see any.
No.
No? Ms. Boras, do you see
Mr.
any?
Courier does not see anything, any regional impact.
Looks like the board agrees unanimously there's no regional impact. Do we have any other business for the board tonight? Would you like to make a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Kanakis. A second?
Second.
And we are adjourned at
19.
At 28:19. Thank you, everybody. Happy Flag Day.